Hey, Johnny Morton is back in Detroit. No, not that Johnny Morton.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? It's another week of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt Derry with you on a Monday, January 27th and a Tuesday, January 28th. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. It is Senior Bowl week. This week, we'll track down a couple of guests. Hopefully get Colton Pouncey on from The Athletic, maybe Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points. We know Brett is down in Mobile. We'll talk a little bit of a Senior Bowl this week for sure. Got to get into the Lions' new offensive coordinator coming up momentarily on the program. We didn't go through the PFF grades for the season. Top 5, bottom 5 on offense and defense for the season, and who graded out best and worst. We will do that coming up momentarily on the program as well. We got to talk about the NFC Championship game yesterday, certainly the AFC Championship game as well, and some Pro Bowl news, all here on a Monday, Locked On Lions. Our program today brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Follow us on all social media platforms. Shout out to some of our everydayers who are out there that watch and listen to the podcast daily. My guy Chris Kemp from Flagstar, met him over the weekend. Big Lions fan, big Locked On fan. We appreciate Chris. Bonnie and Daniel Backing. I guess Bonnie is a huge Lions fan. Connor Kinn, Michael Karam. Thank you, fellas. And also the great Tim Donnellan. Got to give him a shout out as well. Scott, his son, said, you got to give my dad a shout out. So let's do that. Before I do the show today, as you can see, for those of you watching on YouTube, got the sport coat going today. I got to give my condolences to the Gumble family. If anybody that is watching or listening is a U of D High or U of D Jesuit high school person, alum, a student, whatever, you know that Chuck Gumble was an absolute legend at the High. I got a chance to work with Chuck for 3 years. He's the best, one of the best teachers I've ever been around, one of the best educators I've ever been around, one of the best disciplinarians I've ever seen. But he was also a damn good person. And Chuck unfortunately passed away last week. Just sick for his family and everything that they've had to go through the last few years with death in their family. I had a chance to go over and say my goodbyes to Chuck today over at Desmond and Sons in Troy. But shout out to this man. I love you. I love you, big man. Chuck Gumble, man. One of the best. One of the best. All right. So big news that is beginning to surface and bubble. And now various reports indicate that the Lions have their new offensive coordinator. Is it Hank Fraley? No, it's not. Is it Tanner Engstrand? No, it's not. Scotty Montgomery? Mark Brunell? Nope. It is 55-year-old vagabond assistant John Morton. Yes, you're saying the same thing I'm saying. Who? John Morton, who has been the Denver Broncos passing game coordinator the last couple of years and spent 2022 here in Detroit as a special assistant, is reportedly taking over as offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell, a couple of years ago, was asked about Tanner Engstrand, who, of course, is the Lions pass game coordinator. And this was 2 years ago. He was asked about Engstrand, and he brought up John Morton and said, John Morton, man, quote, Johnny's a superstar now. There's a number of things that he did for us last year, talking about 2022, that are things that we've kept. This is when Morton left to take a job in Denver. And I really feel like that helped Tanner as well. He took a lot of that and he learned from that. And he's grown from that. So he's in a good spot. He's an asset for us, end quote. John Morton is a Sean Payton disciple. He has been with Sean Payton in New Orleans. He has been with Sean Payton in Denver. He crisscrossed for 1 year with Dan Campbell as well in New Orleans. And again, was a former assistant here in 2022. Why am I underwhelmed? Well, let me tell you. In 2017, and I'm well aware that the New York Jets offense in 2017 under Todd Bowles was a dumpster fire. All right. Josh McCown was their quarterback. Bilal Powell was their running back. But John Morton was the offensive coordinator for the Jets for 1 season before getting fired. The issues that arose that season in New York were Morton allegedly and reportedly clashed with coaches, clashed with players because he refused to run the football and was very pass heavy. He lasted 1 year as an offensive coordinator in the NFL and has not been a coordinator since. And that was 7 years ago. He was the offensive coordinator at USC before that, years earlier, working with Pete Carroll, and was stripped of his play calling duties there. 55-year-old, kind of a career journeyman assistant that is reportedly coming back to town. He is from here. He went to Avondale, Auburn Hills High School, played wide receiver there, played wide receiver at Western Michigan. So it's a homecoming of sorts. And again, he was a mentor to Tanner Engstrand, who I thought had a chance to become offensive coordinator. So this is the hire. I don't necessarily like it. I'm never going to BS you guys. This comes out of left field for me. I don't know if this means that Mark Brunell's like, the hell with this, I'm leaving. I don't know. The Lions are keeping Hank Fraley. I've not heard Tanner Engstrand news at all. But they're going out and getting a guy that Dan Campbell a couple of years ago said was a stud. But to me, this guy's a job jumper. It seems like he just moves from place to place, and he hasn't been a coordinator since 2017. 3 years as a senior assistant with the Raiders. Back in Denver this year as the pass game coordinator. And again, Morton did lead the Broncos to a top 10 finish in passer rating last year. And then this year, obviously worked with Bo Nix, and they did a great job in Denver. So maybe this guy's some sort of quarterback whisperer. He's worked with Jared Goff in the past. I get that. He worked for Jim Harbaugh at the University of San Diego. He's been at USC. Like I said, he's been with Sean Payton in New Orleans. But I don't like that in 2017, regardless of if he had any talent or not, the guy got fired because they didn't run the ball enough. Great. What's our biggest complaint about Ben Johnson's last game as Lions offensive coordinator? 3rd and 1, Jared Goff in an empty set in the shotgun. Anybody catch the Commanders' run defense yesterday against the Eagles? Oh my God. I think Gannon Druin could run for 200 on the Commanders defense. Jeez. Saquon Barkley, like first touch, goes 60 yards, 70 yards for a touchdown. So this is your offensive coordinator, Johnny Morton, but no, not number 87, the other John Morton. I'm a bit underwhelmed, to be quite honest. Look, what about Bobby Slowick? Did they talk to Bobby Slowick? I would have taken Bobby Slowick from Houston 2 years ago. That guy was a genius and led a very good offense. I know he got fired by the Texans. Maybe there's something we don't know. But apparently John Morton is coming home. Auburn Hills boy coming home. So there you have it. Again, when we get word on the other assistants, we will let you know. The great news is that Hank Fraley is staying as assistant head coach and O-line coach still. So all reports, starting with Adam Schefter and others, now indicate Morton is going to get the job. So his second stint here in Detroit. Seems like he has second stints everywhere. All right, coming up next, let's talk a little bit about what we saw yesterday, shall we? I got some thoughts on that. We got PFF grades for the season. We got a Pro Bowl news. Taylor Decker is finally going to the Pro Bowl. replacing one of his teammates. We'll get into that as well right here on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions. And Locked On Lions today proudly brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5 o'clock. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire somebody, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hiring frame, hashtag hiring frame, which I have on my LinkedIn, to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back on a Monday edition of a Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you. Thanks for checking us out again wherever you get your podcasts and being with us no matter what. We always appreciate your listenership. And man, I know it's a bummer that we didn't get to see the Lions play this Sunday. And I know for some of you, you didn't watch the games. And you especially didn't watch the game at 3 o'clock yesterday that took place in Philadelphia as the Philadelphia Eagles took on the Washington Commanders. I did catch most of it. And like I said before, what was disappointing was you saw how bad the Commanders defense is. Now, I know they didn't have Deron Payne, but my goodness, there's a couple of guys in that Commanders defense, including Marshawn Lattimore, who are just terrible, terrible. Like Jeremy Chin was a stud with Carolina. What has happened to him in Washington? But they got manhandled yesterday by that Eagles offensive line, which, by the way, Landon Dickerson was replacing Cam Jurgens in the first half. He gets hurt. Jurgens comes in on basically with a bad back at center. And Philadelphia was just able to do whatever they wanted offensively and put up a 50 burger on the Commanders. Nick Sirianni gives 0 Fs. He put in the backups, but man, they're going for touchdowns at the end of that game. That Shipley kid running it up on the Commanders. I guess that was something. But I guess with 3 minutes to go in the backups in, what are you going to do? Just take a bunch of knees? So the Eagles are going back to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. Definitely disappointing that the Lions didn't get their shot at Philly, because I think it would have been a different game here in Detroit facing the Eagles. But Lions are going to be back. They're going to be back. But that was, Jaden Daniels still is special. I don't think there's any doubt. There were some throws he made yesterday, but the interior pressure that comes from Philadelphia and the Jalen Carters of the world and all of those guys, Philadelphia's defense is really, really good. And on the back end now, they've got some talent back there, whether it's DeJean or Mitchell. I know Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I'm not a huge fan of, had a decent game yesterday. Zach Bond at linebacker. That's a really, really dangerous Philly team. Really dangerous. And I think they're going to give Kansas City a run for their money. Congratulations, though, to the Commanders. It was a great run. They had a great run. But Philly was superior yesterday. And no one ever talks about Jalen Hurts being one of the top quarterbacks, but he was tremendous yesterday as well, both running and passing. Can't say the same for the Fox studio show. My God, is it a train wreck? Terry Bradshaw is a legend. He's not healthy. The amount of times that Terry mispronounces players' names, it's an uncomfortable watch. And then you got Rob Gronkowski on there. He doesn't even know how to pronounce Terry McLaurin's name. Oh, McLaren. No, it's McLaurin. He's one of the best receivers in the game. Come on, Gronk. Do some homework. How do you not know Terry McLaurin is Terry McLaurin? Menifee's a bore. Howie Long says nothing. Interesting. Nothing. That's a rough watch. That CBS studio show with Nate and Matt Ryan and James Brown, that show is Bill Cowher superior to that Fox show. I like Jimmy Johnson on the Fox show, but man, that's a rough watch. Rough watch. Strahan is whatever, average. Did anybody else see that when they mispronounced Terry McLaurin's name? Come on, man. Although I will say this, Tom Brady yesterday did a nice job. That was the best broadcast he had all year. On the AFC side, I know what people are going to say about Kansas City. They're sick and tired of seeing the Chiefs again. But man, what a run they're on. I was rooting for Buffalo too, just to see something different. Absolutely. I wanted to see Josh Allen go to a Super Bowl. I thought that game was tremendous. Came down to the end. Give Steve Spagnuolo a lot of credit. By the way, it's Spagnuolo with an O. For those of you that call him Spagnola, you sound dumb. Spagnuolo is great. He calls a corner blitz on the last play of the game on that fourth down. And yes, Kincaid nearly caught that ball, but that was a great football game. And I'm like a lot of you, I was just rooting for Buffalo for something different. No, I was not rooting against Kansas City because of Taylor Swift, and I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to press that button. I think Taylor Swift brings a lot of people joy, and I'm not going to hate on her. Her boyfriend's also a Hall of Fame player. Not her fault they put her on TV. But the Chiefs are something special, man. That is. And to now be able to sit here in 2 weeks and watch a team try to do something that nobody's ever done, and that's win 3 in a row, I think is going to make for an intriguing matchup. Yes, we've seen Philly and Kansas City. We just saw it 2 years ago, but Mahomes is moving on up, man. And that Chiefs defense is ferocious. It's nasty. You always thought of Kansas City and you thought of all the skill position players that they've had, and Kelsey and Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and the guys they have now, and Xavier Worthy and all these guys. Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. That defense is scary good. It's really good. And that Chris Jones is a beast. He's a beast. So they're going to run it back and return to the Super Bowl. Pro Bowl. So this week, the Pro Bowl games are taking place. I don't know if they're in Vegas or in Orlando. What I care about when we do the Pro Bowl stuff on this show is who made it out of the get-go. Who were the original names that made it? And the Lions have had plenty of guys over the last handful of years here, last 2 years, where really they've loaded up on Pro Bowlers. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, last year Aiden Hutchinson. Panay Sewell is a Pro Bowler every year. Frank Ragnow, Jack Fox made the Pro Bowl this year. Lions, Brian Branch made the Pro Bowl. Kirby Joseph should have made it. Today, apparently Panay Sewell is not going to travel and not take part in the Pro Bowl games this weekend. So, in his stead, Taylor Decker, after 10 plus seasons in Detroit, after being on our list every summer when we talk about who could be a first-time Pro Bowler, Taylor Decker got selected to replace Panay Sewell. So congratulations to Decker for at least getting the honor and being recognized. Sounds like Amon-Ra St. Brown is also pulling himself out of the Pro Bowl as well and not going to take part in the games this coming weekend. But regardless, very, very cool for a guy like Taylor Decker, who's been here, who's grinded, who's played well, getting that opportunity to make the Pro Bowl and at least be a part of the activities this weekend. This coming weekend will be rough with no football. First weekend we've had no football in a while. And then Fox has the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks with Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Tom Rinaldi, and Aaron Andrews. If you ever watched those interviews that Dan Quinn had done last couple of weeks with Tom Rinaldi, Dan Quinn's pretty cool. Like, you root for a guy like that. I love how he always calls Tom Rinaldi by his name. He's like, you know what? Great question, Tom. I don't know. You root for a guy like Dan Quinn. I thought he was pretty classy yesterday. In defeat, as his Commanders got waxed by the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, let's do something we haven't done yet. And we're a little bit behind on it, but let's do it. Pro Football Focus, of course, grades every game, including the playoffs, and then they combine the scores for all the games and put out their PFF grades for the season for each individual player. Who graded out the best and the worst on the Lions this season? We will do that coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions. As always, Locked On Lions brought to you by FanDuel. The Super Bowl is here. One game, two teams, Chiefs and Eagles, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, well, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5. If you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, Locked On Lions for a Monday. Shout out, by the way, to the Red Wings. I was at the game Saturday night. I hadn't been to a Red Wings game at the LCA. Took my wife in ages, but that team's under Todd McClellan is playing hard, and they seem to win every night. So it's nice to see the Pistons and the Wings kind of resurgent here, especially the Wings lately. Pistons have been real good too, so that's great. The food at the LCA, that's another story. I'm just throwing everything out today. All right, PFF grades for the season. Let's give you the top 5 and bottom 5 Lions for the season on offense and defense. We will start on defense, and I'm going to include everybody here. All right, now if you played one game and one snap, I'm not going to include you. But the highest graded Lion for the season, even though he only played 5 games, was Aiden Hutchinson, who graded out at a 94.9. That should come as no surprise to anybody with the kind of year Hutch was having before he broke his leg. Kirby Joseph was number 2, played in all 18 games, 90.4 grade. Awesome. Brian Branch missed just 1 game, 83.7. Aleem McNeil played in 14 games, 79.6. And Jack Campbell, who laced him up for every game, 78.7. So Hutch, Kirby, Branch, McNeil, and Jack Campbell. Not a surprise. Those are your highest graded Lion defensive players. On defense for the lowest graded, Quan Alexander, who played in 2 games, was 34.8 before he was let go. Maurice Norris, who only played in 2 games, was 38.4. James Houston, who played in 8 games before being released, 42.2. Ennis Rakestraw, the rookie, 6 games, 42.8. And Patrick O'Connor in 12 games was a 43.5, tied with Broderick Morton, who only played in 2 games. I'm going to be very interested in seeing what the Lions do with Broderick Morton. I'm not sure they're going to give up on him per se, but after 2 years, extremely underwhelming. All right, on offense, he played in 5 games, but the highest graded offensive player on the Lions this year was Christian Mahogany at a 91.5. And I said this last week, and I'll say it again. I'm guessing Christian Mahogany is going to be your left guard next year if the Lions can re-sign Kevin Zeitler. I think Graham Glasgow will either take a pay cut or maybe be let go. Maybe you want Graham around. He's a great locker room guy. He's a good veteran, swing player, but he struggled this year, to say the least. I think we talked about Graham Glasgow graded at a 57.2, almost 18 points lower than his grade last year. Mahogany might be the real deal. 91.5 for the rookie. Jahmyr Gibbs, 18 games played, 90.1. We know how good he is. Penei Sewell, 89.6, was 3rd. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 89.3, was 4th. And the 5th highest graded Lion on offense, Kevin Zeitler, 86.8. They've got to bring him back. If he wants to come back, bring him back. Put him at right guard and don't worry about him. As far as the bottom 5 performers on the Lions offensively this year, Michael Neese, backup center, 42.4. Shane Zylstra, 49.6 in 13 games. Coyote Ewoshika, 5 games, 51.3. Brock Wright played in every game, but a 52 grade. And Tom Kennedy, TK85, 54.2. Dan Skipper played in 16 games as a 55.2. So those are your top 5 and bottom 5 Lion grades for the entire season. A lot of teams, I would say a lot of teams take PFF into consideration, and there's other teams that really don't love the Pro Football Focus grading system. There have been players that have openly campaigned against PFF. There have been players that have said, hey, look, this is my grade and whatever. From what I've heard, the Lions really do take PFF into consideration and are one of the teams that utilizes it. So, and for those of you that didn't know, this is Chris Collinsworth's company, Pro Football Focus. He started it. And I'm a big PFF fan. I like it. I like that we can refer to it and use it on the show. Their analysts and some of their folks are great. I really like their website. I can't wait for the summer when they do the rankings of the players and everything else. I always enjoy that. Look, the bottom line is this: the Lions have a lot of really good players. A lot of good players. We used to sit here and talk about grades in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and just bad football. The Lions are really good. And I know it didn't end the way the fans wanted. And I'm not telling you to be happy about it. It's very disappointing that the Lions, we're not talking Super Bowl this week or the next 2 weeks, because that was the goal. But I think the Lions are going to come back pretty strong next year and have another really good season. I know the road schedule's murder and everything else, but I like the Lions' chances. I do. Okay, that'll do it for us on this Monday edition of Locked On Lions, chasing down a couple of guests for later on this week, including going down to Mobile and checking in at the Senior Bowl. I know quarterbacks spoke today, and we got a lot of very good talent. We'll do maybe a mock draft tomorrow. I know today is usually mock draft Monday. Maybe we'll do a mock draft tomorrow on the show. A couple of good ones that I saw, both having every mock draft I've seen so far is the Lions taking an edge rusher. Whether I've seen Mike Green from Marshall or Jack Sawyer from Ohio State, many feel the Lions at number 28 will be taking an edge rusher. But we know Brad Holmes likes to surprise us. We're back again tomorrow, right here on Locked On Lions.